He leaned back in his chair right in the middle of my pitch and yawned. Loud. Dramatic. On purpose. Then he looked around the room like he was inviting everyone in on the joke. Maybe we should save fairy tales for bedtime, yeah? Mark said. Laughter. A few actual chuckles. I stood there with my prototype in hand. Months of design, testing, and refining, reduced to a punchline. And he let them laugh. The manager. The leader. The one who told me to bring something innovative. He didn't just allow it, he enjoyed it. I didn't cry. Not there. I just blinked twice, forced my voice steady and said, "Thanks for your time." Then I picked up my bag, held the prototype like it still meant something and walked out, slowly. Because if I walked fast they'd know it hurt. It did. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Rough one, Hull. One of the guys said in the elevator. I didn't respond. Next time maybe keep it a little more grounded, he added, smirking. I looked at my reflection in the elevator mirror. My face was blank. Too blank. I nodded. Said nothing. When I got back to my desk I opened Slack. I left the group chat. Quietly. No explanation. Just left. If they wanted to act like I didn't exist I could play that game better. The office buzzed around me. Keyboards clicking. Phones ringing. People laughing at lunch plans. I sat there staring at my screen, feeling invisible. Good. Let them forget about me. Let them think I was done. Let them assume I'd crawl back to my desk and accept my place. They had no idea what was coming. I opened a new folder on my personal laptop. Named it something they'd never think to look for. Then I started moving files. Every single piece of my prototype. Every diagram. Every test result. Off their servers. In my control. I joined the company because I believed in building things that mattered. That was the pitch, right? We value innovation. We're a flat team. No egos. Sure. The truth? It was a boys' club in Patagonia vests with a running joke that I was too intense. My name is Ava Sinclair. I'm not intense. I'm prepared. And that scares people who aren't. Mark used to praise me. Early on. Sharpest mind in the room, he said. But something changed the day I disagreed with him in a meeting. From that point on it was all downhill. He started dismissing my suggestions. Rolling his eyes when I spoke. Making jokes at my expense that weren't quite jokes. The team followed his lead. Because that's what happens when leadership sets the tone. I became the problem. The difficult one. The person who didn't get it. But I did get it. I got it perfectly. They wanted yes people. Cheerleaders. Not someone who actually pushed boundaries. So I stopped pushing in meetings. Started pushing in private instead. I once suggested we integrate predictive modeling into our dashboard. Mark shrugged. Not necessary. 2 weeks later he presented the idea in a meeting. Almost word for word. And they clapped for him. I remember sitting there stunned while he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sometimes ideas just float around the room." I started documenting everything that day. Dates. Memos. Slide decks. All of it. They could erase my voice in meetings but they couldn't erase metadata. Every email I sent got copied to my personal account. Every suggestion I made got time-stamped in a private file. Every conversation got noted. Not because I was paranoid. Because I was smart. Mark had stolen from me once. He wouldn't get the chance again. I learned to speak less and record more. To share ideas in writing, not in rooms where they could be claimed by someone louder. It was exhausting. But it was necessary. The idea came to me at 2:17 a.m. I was in my kitchen barefoot pouring cold coffee. There was a flaw in our system. No one wanted to talk about it. But I had a solution. A bold one. I drew it out on a napkin. The architecture. The fix. The vision. It was ambitious. Scalable. And it solved the exact issue our team had been dancing around for months. I knew it was good. And that was the problem. If I brought this to Mark, he'd dismiss it. Then weeks later he'd present a watered-down version and take credit. Or worse, he'd kill it entirely just because it came from me. So I did something different. I kept it to myself. I spent the next 3 weeks building it in secret. Late nights. Weekends. Every free moment poured into making it real. Not just an idea. Not just a concept. A working prototype. Something they couldn't ignore. I pitched it to Mark one-on-one. No slides. Just walked him through the framework. He barely looked up. Too ambitious, he said. Not our lane. He waved me off like I was pitching a mobile game to NASA. But I saw his eyes flicker, just for a second, when I mentioned predictive prioritization. He knew it had teeth. 3 days later, I saw the term appear in someone else's deck. I started backing up my files outside the company after that. Every night before I left, I'd export everything. Code, documentation, test results. All of it saved to 3 different locations. Cloud storage, external drive, email drafts. They could lock me out of their systems, fire me, delete my access, but they couldn't touch what I'd already protected. Mark thought he was clever. Thought he could pick through my ideas like a buffet. He had no idea I'd already moved the whole meal off his table. Fairy tale Ava. That's what they called me. I heard it while walking past the break room. Didn't stop. Didn't react. Apparently my ideas were too out there. Too unrealistic. But I noticed something strange. The people who laughed. They started getting quiet whenever I entered a room. Because deep down, they knew I was building something they didn't understand. And that scared them. I'd catch them glancing at my screen when they walked by. Whispering to each other when I left meetings early. They sensed something was happening. They just couldn't figure out what. Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. I wasn't there to make friends anymore. I was there to finish what I started. And when it was ready, when it was perfect, they'd see exactly what fairy tale Ava had been building. They wouldn't be laughing then. While they were mocking me, I was building. Not loudly. Not publicly. Just methodically. Nights. Weekends. Code reviews with people outside the company. Legal advice from a friend who owed me a favor. Every joke. Every brush off. I stored it. Not because I was angry, but because I was patient. I knew how this would end. I'd seen it before with Mark's stolen ideas. The company had no accountability. No paper trail. No consequences. So I created my own. Screenshots of Slack conversations. Recordings of meetings where I presented ideas that later became Mark's. Emails with timestamps proving who said what first. A lawyer friend reviewed everything. This is airtight, she said. If they try anything, you're protected. I didn't plan to sue. I planned to leave. But I wanted insurance. Proof. Evidence that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't the problem. That I was the solution they were too blind to see. Company offsite. Everyone pitching ideas. Mark put me dead last in the lineup. Then ran out of time before my slot. People clapped. Fake smiles. Some of them looked at me with pity. I stood at the back holding my prototype in a locked case. I never opened it. But I recorded the entire event. Just in case. I watched Mark present his vision for the quarter. Watched him use buzzwords without understanding them. Watched the executives nod like he was saying something profound. It was theater. Performance. Nothing real. When the event ended, people filtered out. A few came up to me. Sorry you didn't get to present, one said. I smiled. It's fine. Wrong audience anyway. They looked confused. I didn't explain. I left that offsite knowing exactly what I had to do. This company didn't deserve my idea. Someone else would. Hey, someone whispered at my desk later that week. Eli, a junior engineer. I don't know why they shut you down. I think your idea actually makes sense. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Instead, I smiled and said, want to take a look at something? He nodded. That was the night everything changed. I showed Eli the full prototype. Walked him through every feature. Every line of code. Every test result. His eyes widened. This is incredible. Why isn't the company using this? Because Mark said no. That's insane. I shrugged. That's reality. Eli leaned back. You know, I have a friend who works at Titan Corporation. They've been looking for something exactly like this. My heart skipped. Really? Yeah. They're desperate for innovation. Want me to mention it? I hesitated. This felt risky. But staying felt riskier. Yes, I said. Mention it. Eli grinned. Consider it done. Bus started. A major client, huge, was flying in to discuss innovation. Mark sent out an all-hands email. Only cleared proposals will be presented. I wasn't on the list. Not surprising. What he didn't know was that someone else had already shared my prototype. Eli's friend had passed it to Titan Corp's innovation team. They'd reviewed it over the weekend. And they loved it. I got an email Monday morning. Subject line, urgent, meeting request. My hands shook as I opened it. Miss Sinclair, we've reviewed your system prototype. We'd like to discuss implementation. Are you available this week? I read it 3 times. This was real. Titan Corp wasn't just interested. They were ready to move. I replied immediately. Available anytime. Mark walked past my desk, coffee in hand, completely oblivious. He had no idea his biggest mistake was about to walk out the door. I had a friend. That friend worked for the client. He shared my prototype. Unofficially. 2 days later I got an email. We'd like to talk directly with you. They saw what the others refused to. And they didn't laugh. The meeting was set for Thursday. 3 days away. I spent every night preparing. Refining my pitch. Anticipating questions. Making sure every detail was perfect. I couldn't afford to mess this up. Wednesday night I barely slept. My mind raced with possibilities. What if they changed their mind? What if Mark found out? What if this was all a mistake? But Thursday morning I woke up with clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This was my moment. I put on my best outfit. Printed backup materials. Loaded my prototype onto a tablet. Then I drove to Titan Corp's headquarters, hands steady on the wheel, knowing everything was about to change. Mark pulled me aside before the meeting. Don't make this about you. Just stay in your lane. I nodded. I was so far ahead of him it wasn't even a lane anymore. He had no idea I was meeting with Titan Corporation, thought I was just attending some internal review. Remember, he said, we're a team. No grandstanding. Of course, I said. He patted my shoulder. Condescending. Dismissive. I smiled and walked away. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Titan Corp's conference room, presenting my prototype to their entire executive team. They asked questions. Real questions. Technical. Thoughtful. I answered every single one. No one yawned. No one laughed. No one called it a fairy tale. When I finished, the CEO leaned forward. When can you start? My breath caught. Start. We want this. And we want you to lead it. The client wanted the system. My system. But they didn't want to go through the company. They wanted me to lead the initiative, independently. I asked for a weekend to think about it. Then signed. The contract was sitting on my kitchen table. 6 pages. Legal language. Numbers that made my head spin. They were offering me a consulting position. Full control. Creative freedom. And a salary that was triple what I made at my current job. All I had to do was sign. I picked up the pen. Hesitated. This was it. The point of no return. If I signed, I'd be leaving. Burning bridges. Starting over. But staying meant more humiliation. More stolen ideas. More fairy tale Ava jokes. I thought about Mark's yawn. His dismissive wave. His smug face. Then I signed my name. The next morning I drafted my resignation letter. 2 weeks notice. Professional. Polite. I didn't mention Titan Corporation, didn't mention the contract. Just thanked them for the opportunity and moved on. Suddenly, engineers started asking me questions. Not mocking, genuine curiosity. VPs started replying to my emails within hours. I wasn't just being heard. I was being sought out. Word had spread. I don't know how. Maybe Eli. Maybe someone at Titan Corp mentioned it. But people knew something was happening. Mark noticed too. I saw him watching me during meetings. Frowning when people came to my desk. You've been busy, he said one afternoon. Just working, I replied. On what? Projects. His jaw tightened. He knew I was hiding something. But he couldn't figure out what. 2 days before my notice period ended, Titan Corp announced their new partnership. A revolutionary system. Led by an external consultant. They didn't name me. Not yet. But Mark knew. I saw it in his eyes when he read the press release. He'd lost. And he knew it. Mark tried to pitch to the client. Used my language. My deck. I sat across from him in the conference room. Said nothing. The client interrupted. We've already reviewed this with Ava. His face dropped. The Titan Corp team had invited me to sit in on the meeting. Just as an observer, they said. But it was more than that. It was a message. Mark stumbled through his presentation. Used terms he didn't understand. Presented ideas that were clearly mine. The Titan Corp CEO stopped him halfway through. This is interesting, but we've already moved forward with Ms. Sinclair's system. Mark's face went pale. What? Ava's been consulting with us for 2 weeks. We've signed a contract. The room went silent. Mark looked at me. I looked back. Said nothing. We appreciate your time, the CEO said. But we're all set. Mark gathered his materials and left. Didn't say a word. I stayed. We discussed timelines. Next steps. Launch dates. Like I belonged there. Because I did. Mark started slipping. Sending defensive emails. Blaming others. I stayed silent. Until HR requested a meeting, and I handed them everything. They called me in 3 days after the Titan Corp meeting. I brought a folder. Everything organized. Labeled. Dated. We've received some concerning reports, the HR director said. About intellectual property. I nodded. I assumed you would. Mark claims you stole company property. I opened my folder. I built everything on my own time. My own equipment. Here's the proof. I showed them timestamps. File creation dates. Emails where I pitched ideas that Mark rejected. I offered this to the company first, I said. Multiple times. I was told no. The HR director reviewed everything. Her expression changed. This is very thorough. I document everything now. Why? I met her eyes. Because I've had ideas stolen before. I learned. She closed the folder. Thank you for bringing this. We'll be in touch. I left. No drama. Just facts. They reviewed timelines. Email threads. Slide history. File access logs. The truth wasn't hard to find. I didn't need to twist anything. I just showed them. HR called me back a week later. We've completed our investigation. And Mark has been removed from his position. Effective immediately. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just relief. What happens now? I asked. That's up to you. If you want to pursue legal action. I don't. I just want to move forward. She nodded. We understand. And for what it's worth, we're sorry. You deserved better. I thanked her and left. The office felt different after that. People whispered. Avoided eye contact. I had 3 days left. Then I'd be gone. And this place would be nothing but a lesson learned. Mark was quietly removed from the project. His name disappeared from the files. People stopped whispering around me. Now they smiled. Too late. I saw him once more before I left. In the parking garage. He was loading boxes into his car. Personal items. Photos. Boards. He saw me. We locked eyes. For a second I thought he might say something. Apologize. Explain. But he just looked away. Got in his car. Drove off. And that was it. No final confrontation. No dramatic scene. Just a man who'd underestimated the wrong person. I got in my car and headed to Titan Corp for my first official day. Turned the radio up. Rolled the windows down. Felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I was free. I handed in my resignation with a thank you card. No drama. No speeches. Just dignity, and a signed contract worth triple my old salary. My last day was quiet. I cleaned out my desk. Said goodbye to the few people who mattered. Eli hugged me. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for believing in me, I said. I walked out of that building for the last time. Badge turned in. Laptop returned. Keys handed over. No one threw me a party. No one made a speech. But I didn't need that. I had something better. Proof that I was right. That my idea wasn't pointless. That I was exactly as capable as I'd always known. I drove straight to Titan Corporation. My new office was waiting. Corner view. Windows overlooking the city. A nameplate on the door. Ava Sinclair, Chief Innovation Officer. I stood there for a moment staring at it. Then I walked in and got to work. Mark tried to catch me in the hallway. Ava, listen, he started. I didn't stop walking. Not because I was cold. Because I had nothing left to say. This was weeks later. I was back at the old building for a contract signing. Titan Corp had acquired some tech from my former company. Mark was still there. Demoted. Working under someone new. He looked smaller somehow. Tired. Can we talk? He called after me. I kept walking. Through the lobby. Out the door. Into the sunlight. I didn't owe him closure. Didn't owe him forgiveness. I owed him nothing. My car was parked in the visitor spot. Reserved. Premium. I got in and drove away. Didn't look back. Not once. Because the past didn't matter anymore. Only forward did. 3 months later, I gave the keynote at the client's summit. Talked about ideas. Being underestimated. Building anyway. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. The applause said everything. 500 people in the audience. Industry leaders. Innovators. People I'd admired for years. And they were listening to me. I shared my story. The rejection. The mockery. The moment I decided to bet on myself instead of waiting for permission. Someone once called my idea a fairy tale, I said. But fairy tales can come true if you're willing to build them. The room erupted. After the speech, people lined up to talk. To thank me. To share their own stories of being dismissed. One woman, tears in her eyes, said, I needed to hear this. Thank you. I hugged her. Keep building. That moment meant more than any contract. Any title. It meant I'd mattered. Mark applied for a job at a company I now consult for. They called me for a reference. I told the truth, calmly, professionally, with dates and receipts. He didn't get the role. The hiring manager asked direct questions. Did he support innovation? Was he collaborative? Did he give credit where it was due? I answered honestly. No, and no. Can you elaborate? I did. Without emotion. Without anger. Just facts. He dismissed ideas that didn't come from him. He took credit for work that wasn't his. And when challenged, he retaliated. Do you have proof? I can send documentation if needed. That won't be necessary. Thank you for your honesty. They didn't hire him. I didn't feel guilty. He'd built his reputation. Now he had to live with it. Actions have consequences. And his were finally catching up. My product launched under my name. Coverage. Interviews. People reaching out to learn from me. Eli's letter came in the mail. Thank you for proving what I always believed. The launch event was massive. Press. Investors. Clients. Titan Corp had pulled out all the stops. Banners. Demos. Live presentations. And my name was everywhere. Ava Sinclair's revolutionary system. The innovation that changed everything. I stood on stage looking out at hundreds of faces and felt surreal. This was my idea. The one they'd laughed at. Called pointless. Dismissed. And now it was industry standard. After the event, Eli found me. Handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Thank you for proving what I always believed. You were never the problem. They were. Eli. I folded it carefully. Put it in my pocket. Some things are worth keeping. They told me I was too much. Too loud. Too ambitious. They laughed. And I built anyway. I never needed their approval. I just needed them to get out of my way. Now 2 years later, I run my own consulting firm. 20 employees. Clients worldwide. Revenue in the millions. I hire people who've been dismissed. Underestimated. Called too much. Because I know what that feels like. And I know what they're capable of. Mark. Last I heard, he's working freelance. Struggling. I don't think about him much anymore. He's irrelevant. What matters is this. I proved them wrong. Not by arguing. Not by fighting. By building. By trusting myself when no one else would. By refusing to shrink just because someone couldn't handle my size. So if you're reading this, if you've been laughed at, dismissed, told your ideas are pointless, keep building. Document everything. Protect your work. And when the moment comes, walk away with your head high. Because they don't get to define you. You do. I'm Ava Sinclair. And I built anyway.